Hello and welcome to your practice. Today we are going to be indwelling interoception. What does that mean? So, interoception is our sense of what we feel on the inside. So, just as we have, perhaps, of course, based on our different anatomy and physiology and ability, some bodies have a sense of sight where they can see, some have a sense of sound where they can hear, some have a sense of smell where they can smell. So, our sense of interoception is this internal felt sense of anything. It could be aches, it could be pains, it could be gurgles, it could be just excitement and emotion. And for a million reasons, we might have diminished our sense of interoception. Maybe we've had chronic pain, maybe we've had chronic stress, maybe we've been in situations where we're not safe and we've needed to detach from our interoception. And it's a really, it's a gift that we have, that we are able to disconnect from this sense. It's nothing that we've done that's wrong or bad. We haven't failed at being bodies if we've disconnected from our interoception. It means that our bodies have not felt safe to be fully present and fully awake and alive to themselves. So, if what you notice today as we're exploring interoception is that you don't notice your interoception, please know that you're not alone. This has been a deep, long, complicated journey for me, and one that I'm still very much on. For a long time in my life, I would literally say my body is a machine. And I unfortunately treated my body like that, and I didn't listen to a lot of the cues and the things that my body was telling me oftentimes until my body had to scream at me through developing sicknesses or different things like that that forced me to stop and listen. And so this is always, of course, an exploration. There's no right or wrong thing to notice. So if what we notice today is that we don't notice, that in itself is something to notice. The other thing that I will say is I don't think there's a right way to notice. So, for some people who may be more cerebral or cognitive, you might actually notice your body through images, through colors, through things that you see in your mind. And I've been in spaces where there's been disagreements around different somatic teachers saying that's not true interoception. Interoception is feeling the senses, and I disagree. I think there are as many ways to interocept as there are bodies on the planet. And so I say that because I'm aware that what I'm going to be talking about is very effusive and vague, and it's also going to be so different for your body. So, good luck. I hope that you're able to somehow grasp what I'm talking about, but more importantly, just explore it in your own way and in your own space to see what might feel like it's coming alive for you today. Um, so I'm actually going to mix it up and invite us to get started in a seated posture. And I'm seated on the floor, but if it's more comfortable for you to sit in a chair or on a bed, feel free to do whatever feels best in your body. And I invite you, if it feels comfortable, to bring your eyes off of the screen and let them start to roam around your space. Taking in any colors, any objects that you might notice. Noticing how focused or out of focus your eyes are without needing to change it. Noticing if you have kind of tunnel vision, focusing on one thing at a time, or if your peripheral vision is able to be online. Just noticing what you notice. For those of us who are seeing people, oftentimes our sight can be a space where we might take it for granted. Lately I've been thinking about this, and I say this kindly, but also, you know, out of self-love criticism, just all of the things my eyes could look at, and how often I tend to scroll on social media, which isn't really what I want to do with my eyes. It's never really satisfying. But I love looking at my trees. I love looking at my family. And sometimes our senses get turned down because we are afraid to really let ourselves embrace what we love. Maybe we are afraid we will lose it. Maybe we're afraid it won't love us in return. And so I say this with compassion to say, what if we let our eyes have 5% more time to gaze upon something we love? And if there's anything in this moment around you, maybe it's a plant, maybe it's a picture, I invite you to do so. And as you do so, I invite you to notice, how do I know I love this thing? What images come to mind as I see it? What sensations or temperatures do I feel in my body? What sensations do I feel in my eyes? What shifts do I notice in my breath? And you might feel free to continue looking at whatever you love. If it feels comfortable and safe for you, I invite you to soften or maybe even close your eyes. Maybe starting to become a little bit more aware to your sounds that you hear. And with compassion, asking yourself, how much do I let myself listen to what I love? And maybe the thought is, I don't even know what I love to listen to. I haven't been that connected to that. And that in itself is just something to notice. And if there is something that you love to hear, perhaps it's a song or a loved one's voice or a sound of an animal or nature, could you let yourself imagine that sound in this moment? And then just allowing yourself to ask, how do I know I love that? What comes alive for me inside when I think about it? Are there any places in my body that soften as I imagine that sound? And just noticing what you notice. And feeling free to continue imagining that for as long as you'd like. And when you're ready, perhaps shifting your focus to your sense of smell. Perhaps noticing if there is anything you're able to smell in this moment. That might mean you need to bring an object closer to you if you'd like. And again, just noticing how much permission do I give myself to smell what I love smelling. Noticing if there are any flowers or trees or people or fabrics or locations that come to mind when you think of just almost becoming intoxicated with the smell. And perhaps just having a little bit further inquiry to say, how do I know I love that? What sense of pleasure or delight do I get that tells me, ooh, I enjoy that smell? And feeling free to imagine that for as long as you need to. And maybe coming into your sense of taste. Maybe even as I name that, there's a watering in your mouth and some images of maybe some of your favorite dishes. And just noticing, what are the senses and the textures of taste that make my mouth so happy? And can I give myself maybe even 5% more permission to taste something that I taste because I love it? Not needing to devour it, but actually getting to savor it. And as you imagine any of these things that you love, I invite you to start to notice what's happening in your body now. And maybe asking yourself, are there any movements that my body might love to make here? And maybe that's to stay exactly still where you are. You can feel free to have your eyes open or closed. But I invite you to let yourself move or find stillness in whatever way you might love to do. Just like your senses might love things that you smell or taste or hear, maybe trusting your body even 5%. to know how your body might want to move. And whether your eyes are closed or open, I invite you to notice, how do I notice my body's moving? How is my viscera waking up to the reality of moving here? And maybe that's sensations. Maybe it's images. There's no right or wrong way to notice your movement. And without judgment or expectation, the invitation is to explore, do I feel like I'm moving from the outside in? Does it feel like my skin is the layer that's moving me? And that might be true, and that's okay. Part of our invitation with interoception is to see if we can go a little bit deeper into almost an energetic level of movement, even prior to muscles, prior to fascia, maybe even feeling prior to cells, if that resonates for you. If I were to notice my body energetically moving, what does that shift or change, if anything? And again, if what you notice is how much you don't notice, then you might want to come back to any of your senses that are accessible. So maybe you come back to something you can taste or smell or hear or see, knowing that you can always revisit this exploration of interoception, and it might be totally different next time. So noticing what you notice, noticing what you don't notice. There's this teaching I heard, I believe it was from Thich Nhat Hanh, talking about the Buddha and saying, someone asked the Buddha, what do you and your followers do? And the Buddha said, we sit, we eat, we walk. And the person said, doesn't everyone sit and eat and walk? And the Buddha said, yes, but when we sit, we know we are sitting. When we eat, we know we are eating. And when we walk, we know we are walking. And I hear that as an invitation to interoception, to conscious mindfulness of being where we are. And so just inviting yourself to whatever degree feels accessible for you today, to maybe be just a little bit more awake to your internal sense. And again, if that's inaccessible, Come back to any of your external senses. Letting yourself see or smell or listen to where you are in maybe just a little bit of a deeper way today. And maybe it feels good to ebb and flow back and forth. You know, sometimes when I go into that deeper place, I feel like I come out more alive and awake to what's around me, to my interconnection with all beings. And so maybe taking some time to notice if anything that you see or smell or hear or taste now feels any different than when you first began. And eventually, when you're ready, taking as much time as you need, and maybe that means pausing this so you can keep exploring your interoception. Feel free. But eventually, when you're ready, I invite you to come into whatever final posture feels good for you. And again, just to mix it up, I'm just going to stay like this today as we wrap up. And I actually didn't plan this, but I'm now facing the tree that I was looking at as I was feeling into what I love seeing. So feeling free to maybe notice if or how your experience of what's around you has shifted or changed at all now from when we first began. And maybe letting this be an invitation for you to bring even just a smidge more of interoception with you throughout the rest of your day or your week. Please continue to take really good care of your really good body.